Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 135 of Compass Games Town Hall. I will be live with Bill and Billy Thomas in just a little bit, but until then, I figure we can get some initial questions out of the way. For the hashtag Town Hall, I think the new giveaway tool doesn't actually require that, but keep going anyway, just in case. Get me Billy and Billy added. Go.
She's in all black.
It was too
Are
loud.
you in the moon?
It was too loud in my office, so I went to like the soundproofed room. So hopefully that'll be better for everybody.
Oh,
Soundproof and pitch black.
jeez.
Well, the lamps
That's
are all
pretty
behind
good.
me, so then I had like this really ominous like halo. So we're going with this,
Right there.
y'all. Okay, so we will have our special guests in about 15 minutes. But if you have any questions that you'd like to see us getting out of the way early on, I have a bunch for Bill to get started with. Yes.
For me.
Okay. So Bill Needles wanted to know status of Galaxy Force.
Yes, it's been approved. It's at the printers. Just waiting to ship from China. It's all done.
Very nice. Dan, when I say that, I think that the new tool that we're using for the giveaways just draws a random comment. So like a random person who has commented. No, if you comment a million times, it doesn't count. But I'm just keep going with the town halls for now in case we end up going back to the old tool. It looks like a hostage video, really, guys. I'm gonna do the ominous halo next time. Then you're all make like Maleficent jokes or something. All right.
Oh yeah.
Alan Frampton and company. There were like 4 people who asked about Panzer Ace release timeline.
I think that's at the end of the year.
Very nice.
Either December or January.
Richard Coker, Combat Tunisia, Sicily. Is it in the warehouse?
No. Nope, it's not in the warehouse yet. It's still in China. Yeah. The funny thing is China has, again, shipping from China has, not China, but the shippers, I assume it's because of the Iran thing, has slowed down. Okay, it's tough to book stuff out of China at the moment.
Shane Halloran had asked, still 2027 for Blue Water Navy Pacific.
Yes, I would say towards the middle, and we will be reprinting Blue Water Navy 1 with it. Thank you.
Yeah, Matthew's cranking along on that.
My video out of sync with my voice.
Is it? You look fine on my end.
Just show no, it's not. It's nothing. It's just saying that like when you talk, your mouth doesn't match it.
Yeah, that's what
It
I'm
matches
saying.
on. I don't know.
Well, that is.
Okay.
Oh, blink 2 times. 1, 2.
Aaron Gong had asked
Didn't
about
work.
East Wind Rain, but we don't really have any news on that right now. We'll keep you guys posted. Ted Howland and company, because there were a bunch of people who asked about Carrier Battle South Pacific, and I do have news on that. So we're down to like the box back, and then the edits. There are a couple of remaining edits on each thing, like 1 or 2 counter things, and a couple of like chart things. And the rule book, they just finished going through the entire laid out rule book, so like with all the graphic design and images and everything, and sent all those edits over for Bruce to make, and then we're going to be on track for like the end of summer timeline that we had originally thought to go to print. So that's really exciting. I've already done a pre-production review on it before we even did artwork to kind of minimize all the artwork changes, and then they have a really dedicated team of proofreaders who have been going through the artwork files as they come in. So I think that's going to be in really good shape. Danny Securi asked about Gladiators.
Yeah, Gladiators is at the printers. And I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, we have a ship in the ocean, another one leaving, and then we have another one that's being worked on. That's when Gladiators will be on that one.
You guys are too much. Somebody had asked about the release order for combats. Oh, it's Chris.
Yeah, Paper Wars 114, then Combat Tunisia, then Combat Crete,
and then Blitzkrieg,
then Combat Blitzkrieg.
Burning Banners, August. Yeah, we're still on track for that. Old magazine games from Vance Von Boris. I didn't know we were doing old magazine games from Vance Von Boris.
No, we did them already.
Spanish American War.
We did. Nah, well, we did Forgotten Legion.
Oh, like way back. I was trying to think of like recent advanced on board.
Yeah, Decision Capturing we did. Right? And I think that was it. So we did 2. Some folks are asking about Korean War update. Oh, yeah, the Korean War update, it's just, okay. It's the same as the other one we did. Okay, but it's all it has is it's 1/2 inch and it's on a mounted board.
Isn't it two mounted boards?
Yeah, 2 mounted boards.
2026?
But
Probably not.
Oh geez. No, I can't, I don't know. It's not here yet.
So.
Maybe it will be towards the end. But and then people were saying, it's funny. People were saying that it's very different than the Victory game. Okay? And I hear people, oh, Compass changed this, Compass. We didn't change anything. Okay, on that game. Joe Prokowski changed it. Okay, he had been playing Korean War for years after it had been released, and took all the feedback and play tested it for, I think it was released in 1980s. So he had like 40 years of stuff that he made changes. So all his changes, and we did make a note in the rule book, all the changes in that game were from Joe Prokowski, not us. We didn't do anything but let him do his magic.
So, David, Bear's Claw, Moss ended up giving to another publisher who had already done a game in the same system, but we did just sign 6 more Moss games. Moss is the designer for the Motherland, if anybody is wondering who we're talking about, that are going to be in 3 box sets of 2 games each. So once we have a little bit more info on those, we'll start sharing. Lightning Strikes ETA?
No, we haven't even got I haven't got a sample from the...
An updated sample, right? Because we got one originally.
No, it was just the counters. It was never the whole game.
Oh. I thought we got like the map and stuff.
We've never had...
I thought we got like the... Yeah.
Yeah, we might have the map, but I don't think
no, we
had
didn't have the whole game.
Yeah. So that's that. Okay, what else? Oh, update on each stage in front. I actually reviewed it. We got the sample. We had some changes made to it. So that's going to be out, I would think, again. We're talking about early next year.
Steel Wolves, I can do your favorite thing.
Steel Wolves is, yeah, right there.
Coming up.
I don't know when the counters are coming. The counters are on one of the ships for Death in Trenches. I don't know which one. So that, and what will happen once that comes in, we'll just ship them out for Death in Trenches.
1861.
Still in China. I reviewed it. It's just like I said. It's in one of those. Yeah, if we had our thing, we could probably ship 4 40-foot containers out of China right now.
Dang.
Well, we don't
he's really
Fall Blau.
Oh yeah, Fall Blau reprint. Somebody asked.
Yeah, Fall Blau reprint not at the moment.
For the Burning Banners expansion, he really is cracking on that. So he's got all the components done, and the Vassal module is already done for them to playtest all the remaining scenarios. So that one's really coming along quickly.
And when's that going on Kickstarter?
We're still planning end of summer, so like August.
Hey, well, I thought of something. Why don't we do any games on GameFound?
Because GameFound, you really have to bring your own audience, so it's really just getting there's not as much discovery. So Kickstarter, you can get a lot of people from the Kickstarter audience. GameFound, you're really getting mostly the people that you can already reach. So we like getting new people to continue to grow our community. So we usually use Kickstarter, but in theory, we could use GameFound if we end up having any issues with like the approval timelines, which we've kind of run into lately. We could also do BackerKit. Like there are a ton of options now. It's just most of them don't have as high a discovery rate as Kickstarter.
Well, what's BackerKit?
BackerKit's what we use for our email blasts, that BackerKit launch tool that lets us reach all of our previous backers and tell them about new stuff that they might be interested in. But they also have their own crowdfunding platform. So you can do an entire project just on BackerKit without even using Kickstarter.
And we can do that?
Can do any of the 3. They're not all owned by the same people, so you can kind of mix and match. It's just You don't want to like go back and forth too much because you have to teach people how to use each tool. So if you've taught everybody how to use Kickstarter and then you go over to BackerKit, you have to reteach people how to use that because they're all slightly different, and that can be a pain in the butt.
Okay. Enemy Action Ardennes reprint. No, it's not. It's not going to be a straight reprint. It's going to be a deluxe with modded maps, I think.
Whole bunch of new stuff.
New stuff. So Enemy Action is being redone. Oh, yeah. So this guy said Game Found is a lot more work. Okay.
Thanks, Danny.
When does Rebel Tide start shipping? I would say, when does that ship, Bill?
Next week.
I would say end of next week. Will Trench Raid be reprinted? It's not out. We have Trench Raid available.
Yeah.
So I would say no.
And then we do have Tunnel Rats coming.
Yes, I received that, and Billy and Julian are going to play it, and they're going.
Billy's going to like that one more than Straight of All Saints.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of building your own map.
But you like Tunnel Rats. Weren't you you were all about Tunnel Rats?
I am. I think it's a great game, but yeah.
Randy Heller had asked about the Fortress Europa. We call it deluxe or just the reprint?
Yeah, that's down. We haven't. That was one of the last ones. We haven't even really started doing that one. Yeah.
I was hoping it was toward the top so I could check what we actually called it.
No, Fortress Europa.
Yeah. I thought it was at the top of the pre-orders, but it's not. Let me see. Any other questions before we add in our special guest, guys?
But everybody know who they are.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a secret.
Okay. Right, Bill?
All right. Then let us... Wow, those are some impressive shelves. Hi, Fred.
Good evening.
How you doing?
Great. How about you guys?
Good.
All right, guys. Introducing Fred Schwarz, the designer of Aaron Armor VCore and the upcoming Aaron Armor Korea. If you guys have questions about anything Aaron Armor related or specifically VCore related, I've got all the assets for VCore ready to pull up if we're going to discuss anything. Some people had submitted questions ahead of time, so I can kick things off with that. Somebody had asked if there's a working title for the next game in the series, but they were asking about the BAOR title, and I actually couldn't find an answer to that on Basecamp. Do you happen to know? I know that one's a Bruce project, but I know you're both involved on each other's projects.
Yes, it's going to be Aaron Armor BAOR.
Okay, that's simple enough.
Yeah.
I like that they were all joking about if we're going to spell armor properly for the British with the U. I was like, you can't do that. Somebody had asked
English.
for VCore, where did you get the OOB for the 28th Army? Was it a first wave force or a second wave?
It is a second echelon army. However, we made it a first echelon army because we already used the 8th Guards army in Würzburg, and we didn't want to duplicate that army again. Mainly because we want people to be able to have a lot of forces so they can create scenarios with. That was the real driver. And the 28th Army was close enough in order of battle to the 8th Guards Army, so it really didn't matter. The order of battle came from a work that Bruce did on NATO, and also a website that gives us the entire Soviet order of battle in 1989.
Kaden had asked, do any of the Soviet armies use BMP-3s?
No, there were not BMP-3s at the time of this game fielded that we know of.
Oh, Bruce, good question. What was the hardest thing about designing 5th Corps? Thank you, Greg. Everybody has said at Expo called it VCore. Except for Bruce.
Bruce asked that question? Well, I'll answer it. It was working with Bruce. No, actually working with Bruce is great. I think the hardest thing that any time of working with this period of 1986 to 1989, the United States Army was constantly changing the designations of their units. And that was hard to nail down the order of the battle, especially for the artillery units, because we put the battalion items on there, designations on that. And so that took some time to kind of figure out when units changed, because it was constant from 1986 through 1989. They changed the designations, and that was a tough thing to do. And then, of course, design-wise, I would say the hardest thing was playtesting. It's always the hardest part. That's the long pole in the tent, really.
Interesting question from Chris Selman. Will any of these link up into a super campaign?
We did not design the maps to be able to link together. However, if anybody wants to do that, they can certainly do that. The problem is the border changes direction dramatically right where the two maps might meet. So they're oriented differently, and the hex grain's oriented different. So you'd end up with a really odd thing to do. What you could do, though, is simply calculate a transfer from map to map if you wanted to do that.
Oh yeah, that's how we do it for the War Pacific, War Europe, for the global game. There's like a translation table between the two. Okay, so
I will tell you that both the large scenarios in both games, they're big enough. they are large scenarios, and they take a lot of time to play with. And they're usually great for a convention where you can have, individual division commanders. They're a lot of fun. And in Fifth Corps, you actually get the second echelon army with the Soviets. So you get the First Guards Tank Army coming in. So a whole nother plethora of commie divisions come onto the map on the second day.
Speaking of convention play, Bruce, how many people did you guys have playing it at one point? Was it 9 or 10? That was an intense game. Everybody wanted to get in on that. We had somebody come in and say, like, I'm just a beginner. I want like the simplest game you have. And 2 hours into being into the expo hall with Bruce, he comes back and buys Air and Armor. I'm like, okay. You just dive right into the deep end.
Well, Air and Armor is a deceptive game. It looks like it's very difficult when it comes to the rules and all the different systems and subsystems that we have going on it. But really, we find that we can teach people to play within a half hour. I taught my wife to play one afternoon, and she beat me in the first scenario. So, it's if you're a war gamer, there's a few new concepts, but it's the basics are there.
Bruce asked how Fifth Corps differs from Würzburg as a playing experience.
Did you guys pay Bruce to do this?
I know, he's got the best questions.
Well, what we found out in playtesting, and it was dramatic actually, and it actually influenced the design of Würzburg, because we were playtesting while we were finalizing Würzburg, was the terrain. The terrain is much more compact, dense, and compartmentalized, and that changed the way we modeled armor in the game. So you have a very different feel of how to maneuver, and it's interesting that the dense terrain had the more heavily armored forces in it, in the battle plans of Usurer, and we found that very interesting. And so you play a little different. You have the second thing is it's 1986 as opposed to 1989 that Würzburg is set in. So the United States Army is just beginning its transition from M68-3s and M113s to M1 IPs and M2 and M3 Bradleys. So the U.S. forces aren't as robust as the 3rd Infantry Division is in Würzburg. So that makes the gameplay a little different, and I think much more challenging in that respect.
Somebody had asked, do you subscribe to the theory the Soviets would attack with some Category 2 units to soak off the NATO ATGMs?
No, I don't. I think the Soviets, at the time when I was there, we were facing the 8th Guards Army, and they were going to come, and they were going to come first. In everything that I've researched and in knowledge of Soviet doctrine was they wanted to break our line quickly and exploit deep as fast as possible, get to the Rhine within 4 to 7 days, and win the war, because they knew that they couldn't do a long war. So bringing the second and third tier divisions all the way forward would be telegraphing their moves. So no, I think they were going to go. The group of Soviet forces, Germany, was well trained and well equipped, and they were going to lead the assault.
Jeff technically tagged Bruce, but you might know the answer. Will 5CBG appear in a future game?
The fifth Canadian battle group is in Würzburg. It's in the game. It's in the Würzburg game.
That's an easy answer. Caden asked why you left out the Czechs.
Because the Czechs are down in another sector. The Czechs were not going to come all the way up to East Germany and fight across. That's for a future game if we get to it. That would be fighting towards Munich.
Got it. Speaking of which, there's one more question, I guess, on the general series before we talk about your future stuff. For a general series question, somebody had asked, where are the civilian refugee problems for NATO?
We didn't model that. It's tough enough as it is.
Yeah, there's absolutely enough covered in that game.
I think you depending on the resolution of the game, you'd have refugee problems, but it might be local. So we really didn't want to put it in as an extra random factor. We really want this to be a game of skill of the players, and not something random that kind of constantly gets in their way.
Got it. Bruce again with the winners. What was your philosophy for designing scenarios?
I had two concepts going. One was a story scenario, and the other was a doctrine scenario. And the story scenarios is exactly that. We want to tell a story. Like Soviet Stalingrad is one of those, where we kind of reverse the story and put the Soviets in a Stalingrad situation where they're bogged down in a fight in Frankfurt, and it's kind of just stalemates there. But they have a weak East German reserve division on their flank, and the NATO reforger units counterattack and try to surround them. That's a story type scenario. The second type is doctrine, where we wanted to portray different doctrines that the armies use, and one of them would be like the air-land battle scenario, where you get to actually fight using air-land battle concepts that the U.S. Army was implementing at that time. So those were the two philosophies I used.
Danny Sakari, is the overall plan to do the whole entire front?
I don't know if I could live that long. That would be tough. We don't really have anything planned yet beyond the Korea game, and that takes us out of the theater. Bruce is looking to go into World War II, and we could go down south and do some. We have had people trying to maybe volunteer to do the French, which would be interesting, and of course the Dutch, the Belgians, and the northern coast. It's all possible, but I'm not going to commit right now. I've got enough to do.
That does answer one of my questions of what's next after Korea, but it's good to focus on the thing in front of you. David White, what will Korea cover?
Korea is going to be the battle for Seoul, and it's taking the western portion of the DMZ, and it's going to cover from the Han River all the way up to about the center part of the DMZ, the Chorwan Valley area, and the three avenues of approach towards Seoul. And it's going to cover the opening attack across the DMZ and an attempt to reach Seoul or surround Seoul by the North Korean army. That's what it's going to cover. And it's set in 1986 also.
The terrain development on that one, even the rules to reflect it too, like the tidal patterns and the estuaries, it's just been fascinating to watch. Has the map really been one of the primary challenges, like reflecting that very different terrain?
The map is always a challenge. We've been fortunate to have Lee Brimico and Wood help us with map design, kind of give him guidance, and he runs off and gets it done, and then we tweak it. What was interesting, though, is because of the scale of the game, we pretty much were able to keep the same terrain tiles that we were using in the previous games, except we had to add stuff for the estuaries and the rivers, because the way that they go from high tide to low tide to no tide, and mud flats and those kinds of things, and change the fording. In the morning you can ford the river, in the evening you can't, kind of a deal. So that was kind of the only thing we need to do. What's the challenge is the dense terrain and the movement restrictions that it causes. So, and that both armies had a large leg infantry component. We had to change the time scale and of the game to make it work.
So when you've completely finished 5th Corps, what's your first step when you're starting a new game, like when you started on Korea?
Heavy drinking. No, Korea just kind of came as a, hey, we could do this about Korea. And Lee said, hey, I'll do the map. And before you know it, we were off and running. That one kind of took a life on its own. So I think it in my view, how I kind of do it is I just get an inspiration and go, hey, we ought to do this. That's the same with 5th Corps. I threw that out to Bruce. I go, hey, why don't we move this up to 5th Corps where I was stationed? And he goes, oh, the world doesn't need another 5th Corps game. And I go, yes, it does. It needs the air and armor version of it. And off we went. So both of my designs have come out to be just, I thought of it and off we went. No great plan.
Got it.
Just kind of did it.
Chris Selman asked, will the Navy be in the Korea game?
Only with air. That's an interesting thought, though. I wonder if what the gun ranges would be. I'll have to think about that. That might be interesting, but I'm not so sure that naval gunfire would reach into the areas of the map. However, we do have North Korean amphibious units that get to cross the estuary and make a raid. That's kind of neat.
So what would you recommend as just like something for people to get up to speed before they start on 5th Corps? Like some sort of like movie, TV series, book? I really should start with book with this crowd.
Well, you have the classic novels, Red Storm Rising, Team Yankee, Chieftains. There's a whole plethora of World War III kind of novels. Those are kind of the things that will get you going. I also recommend, if you really want to grasp how to play the Warsaw Pact, get a hold of the FM 100-2 series. They're online. Those were the intelligence documents that the Army produced in that decade, and they tell you how that Army fights. It's interesting reading. It was excellent intelligence work on the part of the U.S. Army.
I like the suggestion of novels, because everyone's always suggesting like the nonfiction works, and those can be a little bit heavier to get into, but a novel is a lot easier to just pick up and get people excited about things. I wish more people did that.
Yeah, and there's no real history because the war never happened. I mean, there are a few books out there on the Full the Gap. They're kind of hard to get. I found one and they wanted like $200 for it, and I went, well, I don't really need to read it. So, but yeah, the novels work, and the doctrinal manuals. FM 100-5 teaches you about airland battle, those kinds of things.
Danny Sakari asked, is there a game you really want to do that hasn't been done yet?
I'm not sure it hasn't been done yet, but I don't think it has. I've talked to Bruce about this already. I call it Prague Spring, and it's the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968. But the West Germans and the Americans come to the aid, and the Czechs fight. The Czechs could have fought, but they decided to stay in barracks because they didn't want to get overrun by the Soviet army. The Soviets were somewhat expecting that they might fight, so why not do an alternate history where they say they do fight, and a U.S. and a West German corps intervene, and that would be at like a brigade level, probably at about the same scale of NATO, but not using the same game system, because I want it to be probably a more simpler game. I thought of not having zones of control and no stacking. I've always been curious to me that in the real military, a unit occupies terrain, not two. So I've kind of toyed with that concept, but it's just in the thought phase right now.
Adam Misnick had asked, does the 2nd Infantry Division in Korea fight different from the heavy divisions in Germany? Heavy.
Yeah, I was in the 2nd Infantry Division in 1985, and so I can I can attest to that. I was in the 2nd Brigade, which had 2 leg infantry battalions, and we were mostly an air mobile unit. So you have a hybrid division with light infantry, mechanized infantry, and armor. So it does fight differently in that respect as a division. We were kind of we were supposed to fly into North Korea and stop their armored division from coming through, and I'm like, okay, who thought of this great plan? But later on, we were put into 8th Army Reserve as kind of a fire brigade. So our brigade would have been really not fighting with the rest of the 2nd Infantry Division. We would have been used to plug a gap or something like that. But yes, it does fight differently.
Caden asked, what team would China be on for Air and Armor Korea?
Well, since it's going to be early, the Chinese are not going to play. I would suspect that the Chinese would have done exactly what they did in during the Korean War, where they would sit and wait until it's a threat to them. So no, we're not going to put them in there. There's enough. Let me tell you, there's enough units on this map already. With 2, I have 2 North Korean infantry corps, 2 mechanized infantry corps, and an armored corps, all in that little space. And then on the combined field army side, we have 1.5 South Korean infantry corps, the Capital Defense Corps part of it, the 2nd Infantry Division, and the Capital Mechanized Infantry Division. So it's dense. There's a lot. There's enough toys there to play with.
Got it. Andrew asked, were you also stationed in Korea? And I'm guessing if not, what got you interested in it?
Yes, I was stationed at Camp Hovey, Korea from December 1984 to January 1986. I was a company executive officer and a company commander of a rifle company.
Bruce, Fred, what is your personal favorite among the 5th Corps scenarios? Bruce,
I have 3. The first is Phase Line Denver. That's where you get to use the entire 11th Armored Cavalry in a high-risk delay with only 1 brigade of all the rest of the 5th Corps units in reserve. The idea was that the bulk of 5th Corps counterattacked north into the 3rd German Corps area as a flank counterattack with a economy of force in the 5th Corps area. And the Soviets did the same with 2 divisions. And then they decided to launch an attack. So the 11th ACR has to delay back. It's brutal, and it's a lot of maneuver, so it's a lot of fun. The second one is I do like Soviet Stalingrad just because it gets to bring in the reforger units that a lot of games don't have. So you get the 4th Infantry Division, the 194th Armored Brigade, and the 197th, the famed $97th Brigade out of Fort Benning, counterattacking. And it's a counterattack scenario. NATO gets to go on the offensive, which I really like. And then the big one, 99 Luftballons, is just a blast. And what I like about that one is most games have, the first echelon army attacks and then you end the game. Well, we always felt we could stop the first echelon army, but we always worried that there was a whole other army coming behind them, and would we have enough left to do that? So you get to play that out where 2 Warsaw Pact armies hammer away at 1 U.S. corps. So that's a lot of fun.
Got it. Bruce asks, any thoughts on a Desert Storm version of the game?
Hasn't crossed my mind. That's a tough one because the Iraqis kind of just got whacked. I'd be hard pressed to find a game there, but you never know. I never thought about it.
Andrew asked, if someone twisted your arm or put a giant sack of money in it, is there a non-historical sci-fi or fantasy game you'd make with similar mechanisms?
Wow. Well, the sack of money would help. That would be interesting. Well, you can always project into the future and you have some kind of robot warfare that uses the same thing and throwing kind of the whole reconnaissance thing changes with the drone warfare and stuff like that. But I probably wouldn't do something outer space or anything, but I'd push into a future war. Like, what would war be like 100 years from now or something? That's a possibility. That'd be a little more grounded in reality than attacking Mars.
Jeff had asked, how does the 2nd Division operate in Korea, as a provider of task forces or as one big blob of units?
Well, I was only a first lieutenant, so I wasn't really privy to the war plans, but it kind of operates as 3 separate task forces. You have the 3rd Brigade that's up on the DMZ over in the Western Corridor. You have the 2nd Brigade, which was the Air Mobile Brigade. This was at the time I was there, so what they do now, I don't know. But the 2nd Brigade was an Air Mobile Infantry Brigade, kind of flying around to stop gaps. And then the counterattack force was the 1st Brigade, which was the Heavy Armored Brigade. So that's how I would envision them working. The division was kind of spread out, especially with the 3rd Brigade over in the Western Corridor. So it would be heavily engaged before the rest of the division got over to it, if it would even get over to it, because I kind of think that the 1st Brigade was going to fight up in the Choron Valley. It makes logical sense because it was stationed, in a position where it could maneuver north into the valley quickly.
Chris had asked, how does nuclear action play out in the game?
We don't have nuclear weapons in the Iron Armor series, mainly because it would just kind of end the scenario. You would blow whole units off the map. So we decided not to put them in. That was a conscious decision. Because like Red Strike is at a higher level, so I can see the nuclear weapons being used. But in a tactical situation, when you nuke a battalion, it's gone. It's going to be out of combat and just be a hole in the it'd just be a hole in the line. But we do have a chemical warfare as an optional rule, and it works quite well.
Speaking of, since Bruce brought it up, can you talk a bit about the different game modes, like the hidden versus open, how different ways people can play?
Yes. The hidden mode was a result of Bill Thomas telling us we had to have a solitaire way of playing the game. And Bruce goes, I don't like playing solitaire yet. And I go, well, I'll do it because I like playing solitaire. And the old Air and Armor game was tough to play because it had no way to deal with the hidden units. So I thought that through, and I came up with an idea that you just wouldn't know the strengths of the unit. You'd come up with a table, and you'd roll when they make contact and see how many points it would be put underneath it to be its strength. That's the difference between the two games. Whereas in open mode, we call it, the strength of your own units. You don't know the enemies, of course, because the other player does. But in hidden mode, you play where you don't have any of the unit strengths on the map. And in a way, I've always argued that's kind of more realistic, because even though you're a brigade and division commander in this game, and when you order a battalion to do something, it may or may not do what you tell it to do. And company commanders may get lost, and they may go down the wrong road, or they may get delayed on the way there. So you're not always going to know if your forces are in the right position or if they got to where they're supposed to go. So that's kind of what we were driving behind it. And I will tell you, there's tension in a solo game because of it. You may send that Soviet regiment forward, but all 9 steps may not get there. So it's a lot of fun to play that way. And I have found that it's forces me to use the doctrine of the nations a little more realistically. When you're playing in open mode, you're playing a shell game. So you're trying to fool the opponent, which is tactical. That's very realistic. But sometimes you have these counters that are moving on a flank. There's nobody really there. That's one of Bruce's favorite tactics, by the way. If you ever play him, be aware of that. So I really enjoy the hidden mode, and you don't have to play it solitary. You can actually play hidden mode against another person. It just makes it tough on yourself because you may not know where your own troops are. It also allows you to do a hanging flank. So you could recreate the Battle of the Wilderness or Chancellorsville, where Jackson found the open flank and maneuvered around the Union Army because nobody was there. And that happens sometimes in Fifth Corps when you push out a unit and lo and behold, it rolls 0 on the table and gets nobody. And now you got a hole in your lines. And you got to plan for it. You can mitigate it with a deliberate defense marker, which guarantees you would get at least one step, but you only have a limited number of those.
Jeff had asked, other than 8th Army HQ and 2nd Division, what U.S. units are likely to be found in Korea?
Only the U.S. Air Force and U.S. Navy air units. We're only doing the first few days, so nobody's arriving yet. I have toyed with the idea of the Marine Amphibious Force out of Okinawa, but I haven't really come up with a way to put them in the game, and would they get there in time? So no, it's what this is truly a come as you are war game. You're getting what's there, and nothing else is coming.
Neil asked, does 5th Corps give the feel of the Fulda Gap TOW alley, or does Soviet preemptive strikes take that out of contention?
Well, one of my favorite sayings is that's below the resolution of the game. Since this is steps are companies, you're really fighting battalions. Nobody has a range beyond 0. I would say no in that respect. We don't have the TOW missile as a separate item. It's built into the game. However, I will say yes in your little 2-2 infantry units. When you put them in a town or heavy woods or rough, overlooking a open terrain, they're doing exactly what the question is asking. They're providing a field of fire, and they're really tough to get out of that terrain. They look like they're weak, but they're really not if you use them properly.
I always end up doing the opposite of what it's supposed to be. If it looks like an acronym and I say it as a word, it's supposed to be an acronym. If it looks like an acronym and I say it as an acronym, it ends up being a word. Okay.
Yeah, that's the Army did that on purpose to confuse people, including themselves.
So when you guys are working on a new air and armor game, any of the 3, do you make up all of the scenarios and then start playtesting, or do you kind of make one central scenario, playtest that until it's working, and then move on to other scenarios?
Well, in 5th Corps, in Würzburg, we pretty much had the scenarios done because we took many of the old scenarios and just reworked them, and we did a few other ones. So that was more of we have the scenarios done, let's start playtesting. In 5th Corps, it was kind of a mixture. We would do a scenario, start playtesting it, I'd start working on it again. In Korea, I've got 2 scenarios done. My plan is I'm going to start throwing the scenarios out there to be playtested while I work on the others. I think that's more efficient. I pretty much, what I'm doing right now is I do the scenario, I run it through a quick hidden mode playtest and get it to a good enough jello state, and then give it to the playtesters. And that's what I think I'm going to do this time. I think it's faster, and I don't bog down on a scenario where I need to be designing others. That's kind of what I'm looking at this time.
Got it. So I have a question that kind of brings in Bill too. So Bill, you always say how the alternative history games don't tend to be as successful as the actually historical games. But why is World War III seem to be the anomaly there? Why do you think people are interested in World War III over other alternative scenarios?
Yeah, I don't know, but they sell like maybe because they were a part of it. Okay, if you're looking at the 80s and 90s, we have a lot of people they were all alive at the time, and maybe I think that might be a big piece of why they continue to sell. But other hypothetical games don't do very well. Okay, Third World War set in the 80s, 90s. Yeah, it's a sell. I don't, and I think it goes back, and I'll say, I think it goes back that the people lived it. Okay, and we were, and remember, we grew up in the age where you had to go under your desk, okay, when you were in grade school because the bomb was going to drop, and like the desk was going to do anything. Okay, up until 89, there was a big feeling among the populace that this could really happen. Okay, that in the 70s and 80s, people were fearful that this could happen in Germany, and so I think that's why. Now there was a time, like 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you couldn't sell a Third World War game. Okay, it's only created a lot of populism in the last maybe 20 years. Because I remember I talked to people who GDW and those guys who produced games at the time, and Third World War series did okay for them, okay, but not to the degree they did for us when we released it. So, no, that's my long-winded statement on that.
That's interesting thought. So, like, there needs to be some amount of distance between the conflict and the game for the game to really, for people to want to look back at it in a game format.
As a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree that a big part of it is those of us who lived it, and there was a lot of us. I mean, the U.S. military was in Germany for a long, long time, and even if you didn't serve in Germany, you were probably in a Reforger unit that went over to Germany and participated in Reforger. So a lot of us lived it in many ways, and I think there's kind of always that, gee, what would it have been like, So I think, and it's interesting that it was just in the last 10 years or so, you see this explosion of these Third World War either remakes or new games.
Yeah.
And a lot of novels too. I've seen come out, I think it's a little bit of a nostalgia thing. And then even if you didn't serve, as Bill says, we all lived it in one way or another. We all knew about the Reagan buildup and watched the movie the day after and Threads and those kinds of, the nuclear disaster thing. So, I think that has a lot to do with it. And it's an interesting, heck, as someone just noted it was a peer, the last time we had a peer enemy that was capable of having the same strength and capabilities to fight the United States on an equal level. Whole different ball of wax, I think. So yeah, I think that's what makes it interesting. I mean, if on Facebook right now, Mark Pitcabbage, the guy who plays ASL, he's played 14 games and done AARs of all nothing but Third World War games, and he's going through from the old ones up to the newest ones. And there's a lot of people watching that, so it's really interesting to see what he's doing. He's kind of sticking at the operational and strategic level at the moment. He hasn't got down to the air and armor scale or anything yet. But we've been encouraging him to play the game and get it out there.
So Andrew, that's a good point. So if it's We Were Alive, what happens to the genre in another generation or so? But I think a very young generation could get very interested in it, because we have that joke about the millennials is, as we hit our midlife crisis, the guys, are you going to take up bird watching, smoking your own meat, or getting into World War II history? Like, you're not at all connected into that, but that's the special interest of our generation. So I feel like the younger generation could kind of move forward with that.
What's interesting is a young lady contacted me. She plays Panzer Grenadier, done by Avalanche Press. And she was an armor officer, one of the first female armor officers in the Army. She got out. She's going to grad school here at University of Michigan. And I told her about Fifth Corps, and she immediately ordered the game. Now, she's about 32 years old. And as soon as she gets it, well, I'll teach her how to play it. And it's like anything. If you could spark an interest to keep it going. And so I think there will always be kind of a, it's going to be, well, my dad served in the Army over there. That's what it's going to go down to, because my son, he's 34, and he's interested in it. So yeah, I think it could keep going. It's up to us to pass it down. By the way, so
that ties into a real times question about: can you talk about how the Air and Armor series is regarded by U.S. Army vets and other SMEs from then and now?
Well, yes. There's a former cavalry trooper who just loves the game. He was so excited that we put the whole 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment in the game, and you get to fight it. You get to do it in two scenarios, both phase line Denver and a 99 Luftballons. He really likes the game. He says it's one of his favorite games. That's Frank Law. He loves it. I've had Claire Conselman, who is a retired, I think, lieutenant colonel. He just emailed me today wanting to know some order battle information, and he's putting up an AAR. I'm finding guys that had served, once they play this game, they really like it. When we played it at Origins last year, I had two guys play that one was an S2 and one was some other, I think it was an armor officer. He sat down and played it, and then they enjoyed it. Again, it goes back to, I got to do this, and now I get to do it again, and kind of thing. So I find it very well received. I haven't had a veteran come back and tell me I was full of crap on something. So that's a good sign. So I think it's well received. At one point, we had talked to the War College, and this is a couple of years ago. They were possibly wanting to use it for training. I don't know whatever happened with that, but the interest was there. That's pretty good.
I think Bruce had just posted about that. Both the Army War College War Game Department and the JCS War Game Department said they own the game and had the new in on pre-order. Okay, anything else? Last minute questions for Fred before we let him go? I know we kept you on a lot longer than I told you we would, and I thank you for staying on with us.
Oh, no problem. I enjoy this. This is fun.
All right, then I think it looks like we're all set. Thank you so much for your time. I think everyone's really excited about Fifth Corps and to see more of Korea as we move forward. And we'll see you again soon.
Yeah,
all right.
thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Well, that was good.
That was good. All right. Other questions? Anybody have anything before we head into our giveaway of the evening? If you have any other Air and Armor questions, I can share them with Fred after the stream. So don't worry if you think of something after the fact. Any other questions that people had asked ahead of time? Nathan Landrum had asked about Absolute Victory, the new edition. So I need to follow up with that designer to talk about some of the changes we're making for that. But I'm excited about a lot of the just like ease of play improvements. So we are doing the 2 mounted boards to cover everything, and then we're also doing cards for the variants, so you don't have to go back to the tables in the back all the time. We're keeping the events in the booklets just because getting them all formatted over to cards would mean like several hundred, 500 plus cards, and then we have to worry about errors being introduced translating them over. But I think the variants are going to be a big help for that. For the Motherland arrived and looks great. That's good to hear. Anything other than the Kickstarter that you want to talk about, Bill? I'm just going to screen share that.
What's the Kickstarter?
I would hope that you would know.
Oh, maybe I know. Oh, yeah.
Falling Crescent. This is Roger Nord's operational level game. So it is similar to his previous designs, but introduces 2 different levels of card play. So it's a little bit more dynamic. And we have our update posted that kind of talks about the different add-ons that we have available. We just picked a couple of our World War I favorites and that are also very pretty. Zeppelin Raider and Schutztruppe. Schutztruppe won the CSR award for best World War I game. Baltic Freikorps is solitaire design. So 2 out of 3 of these are solitaire. You can learn a bit more about those. Anything else? Looking for some questions. Lots of people excited about For the Motherland. Panzer Ace we covered earlier. We're still that one's you're estimating, what was that, end of the year?
Yeah, end of year.
Burning Banners, yes. So that one we also talked a little bit about. That one's we're still scheduled for a Kickstarter towards the end of the summer. Oh, thanks, Mike. Appreciate the support. Anything else? Expo, we've got the fall expo dates. Or I mean, you guys have already had the fall expo dates from the catalog, but it is up now for registration. And our spring expo broke records. So we had 113 people all in all. So that was our highest attended spring event yet. So let's do the same and break some records for fall. So fall is November 5th through the 9th. We're going to open up on the 4th, bright and early, so you can get an extra day of gaming.
Way better than everybody else.
We got to get this updated. And we're going to get our special events going within the next couple of weeks. But I figured we give the designers a couple of weeks to breathe after spring. But get in on that. 5 days, around the clock gaming, $50. Always a good time. Danny, the giant robot game is on pause right now while they're finishing up the first round of artwork for Time Lag. We're working on the box art right now. So hopefully we'll get back to Joe Fernandez had a little bit going on and he was going to finish up the scenarios, and then the big robot game should be ready to go for pre-production review. When does the next Paper Wars ship?
Well, let me think. We do it July.
So that'll be the combat one. So if you haven't pre-ordered that, get in on that. All right. 8:57. Oh my gosh, Chris, you were not the only one. We had 3 different people break down on the way to Expo. It was a series of unfortunate events. Made me very nervous the first day, and then everybody else showed up.
Good job.
Belter, I finished going through all of the updated files, sent back the updated spreadsheet. We trimmed it down, like 75% of the line items were all taken care of. And then Chris sent me the updated rule book with the remaining changes earlier this week. So I need to get through that tomorrow. The title of the robot game is Panzer Mech Solitaire. Feudal Empires. Yes. So Phoebe's been working on the artwork for that. They're getting close to the end. He had an updated version to playtest for us at Expo and show us all the things. We made one big change after Expo, but we think that's about the last of it. And that was just to make things easier because there was a whole system of using the historical leaders that we added, all the different personages, also as the warlords. But we really didn't need that. Just make them the warlords generic, and so you're not having to deal with named figures for every little thing. It's good from Phoebe. Still working on the graphics. All right. Then let me pull up the Fancy Dancy tool.
What you don't know? I never know.
For the giveaway.
Oh, yeah, we got to do the giveaway.
So what are we giving away?
Well, Air and Armor, 5th Corps.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be a big one.
What's that?
Calbert Brown over on YouTube. So yes, guys, I can still sort by #townhall. So let's keep with that. So congratulations. Just send us an email to sales@compassgames.com with tonight's episode number 135 and your mailing address, and we'll get your copy of 5th Corps. Thank you, Greg. Sent off to you. All right. I think that's about it. Do you have anything else, Bill?
Nope.